So I saw you a couple of years ago at Arctangent Festival here in the UK on the Sunday, and I wrote it up, and in my review I said it was a bit like being happy slapped with the rainbow. It seemed to be all the colours of the rainbow seemed to come blasting out in glorious Technicolor. Do you have any memories of that day? Because there was, I believe there was a jacket involved. There was all kinds of things going off that day.
I do remember, I was struggling with my voice that day, and we had some friends that showed up there, and our backstage was in behind a hedgerow in a building that looked like where Bilbo Baggins lived, and I remember being like the juxtaposition between the heavy metal that was cascading over the cliffs and this delightful little tractor that I was looking at outside the room. It's like, of the many things I love about the UK and the time I've spent there. But really towards the end of that run, like when we did Arctangent, I was just starting to get burnt out at that point. So I was, my connection to wanting to put on a good show is paramount to my desire to be out. Like I don't want to tour if I'm not at my best, right? So I remember much of my energy that day going into just being like, okay, in 4 hours I'll be done, right? And then when we got up on stage, there was kind of a free-for-all. I think it was like maybe there was a sense that the sort of fun aspect that we were trying to bring that day was welcome. And,
yes.
I think that had it been more po-faced, it probably wouldn't have been as fun, because I do remember getting off stage being like, okay, that was good. I had a good time.
Well, I have to say, for someone who was there working press, I was like, thank God for that. I needed that.
Oh, great.
Because I think there had been a run up to that. There'd been a lot of very intense industrial music and
totally
gent and whatever else, and all of its variants. So that was a wonderful day. So
what I would say though that differentiates what I do between like Colors of the Rainbow Weird Al Yankovic and Colors of the Rainbow Dev is that there's certainly as much as there's the positive things that I certainly spend much of my energy trying to stay focused on. I don't want to give energy to things that don't deserve it. I'm also not oblivious to my own darkness, right? So it's like, I think that there's a different type of energy that comes from like knowing how problematic things are, but choosing to focus on the things that aren't that, versus just being, like those things don't exist, right? Like I'm certainly aware that the darkness exists. I just choose to focus on the other things with that show, at least.
Well, one thing that came across in spades was your commitment to showmanship and performance, which seeks nicely. See, I'm getting good at these segues.
Very good, man.
So it segues nicely into this very ambitious project that's taken reportedly 10 years, the Moth.
Yeah.
The Moth. Now, to listen to it, it sounds like it should be attached to a Broadway musical.
Right.
But the most like metal sort of intense Broadway musical ever, like one you've never seen before.
Yeah, well, it's like my whole goal with anything I do is like I'll shoot for the West End, knowing full well that it's not going to go there. So I think that the best way to proceed with anything like that is to if the original idea includes something that is like an opera or a musical or sort of like an audio cinematic experience, but that the chances of being able to fund something like that, or the powers that be at Broadway, would they be willing to give me carte blanche to do what I'm looking to do? I mean, no, right? But I go into these scenarios pretending like that's what it's for. So in the event that Moth was like a surprise hit, and all of a sudden in 2026, amidst all the rest of the chaos in the world is all of a sudden decides that the chaos of the Moth is what we want to invest money into a Broadway show for. We've got a story, we've got performers, it could be totally translated to that. So that was part of the foresight of it, is like working under the assumption that it would be that. But again, dude, it's like I'm long in the tooth enough to know where I stand in terms of my, my industry throw. And so if the answer to that is negligible, by the way. So moving into a sphere where I'm trying to propose this as being something that's essential for people's lives, it's just not really on my trip. However, if people want it, yeah, dude, we thought it all out. We got it. But
so there's a script.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Did you write the script first? Like
no, the whole time we had like maybe 10 of us working on it.
Wow.
We got a script, we've got a story, we vetted it from beginning to end. We went through all these different things. We got all the characters. It's all there. It's the reason I put my face on the cover as opposed to trying to make a big do out of it, because part of releasing this for me was just accepting who I am, right? And who I am is like wired to think in terms of musicals or narrative or opera or things like this. But also, it's not like anything that I feel like I need to push down people's throats, nor do I think it's essential for the experience. So as opposed to try and rationalize something that is as sort of complicated as the Moth by saying, oh, but it's a narrative. The reason you don't like it is because you didn't hear the story. You know what I mean? I'd much rather be like, no, the reason you don't like it is because you don't like it. And no amount of story is going to change that, nor should it. There's enough coming out right now that if you don't like it, just don't listen to it. But there are people that maybe will like it. And if there's enough people that want it to be performed in a way that has like the opera and the story and the narrative and everything, and the geometric tetrahedron that the protagonist performs it in, it's like, if you want that, yeah, man, 100%, we'd love to do it. As a team, we'd love to do it. But I think there's at least enough humility within the team to be like, there's a good chance this is too much for people already. You know what I mean? And we've got limited resources. So until such time that people are like, yeah, man, we want this, I'll just keep focusing on the other 15 things we got going on, and we can talk later.
Well, because the Moth was, as we said, like 10 years in the making, probably more. I don't know. Was it? But it was 10 years being talked about, at least. It was part of Devin Townsend lore, almost.
Yeah, that's true. I'll accept that. I mean, I think that when we say 10 years working on it, the way that probably we would like to spin that in order for it to be as romantic as it sounds is, me toiling away in the studio, like Jacob's ladders burning and Bunsen beakers bubbling with shit. But it's unfortunately not the case. It was... The Moth existed in the same way as almost every idea that I have, like all over the studio, all over the house, everywhere. It's just pads of paper everywhere. When I have an idea, I write it down. Like, I wrote this one down in an interview the other day, the idea of a character called a time fly that just applies. Oh, nice. Yeah, but it's like stupid. But I wrote it down without any thought of like, oh, we're going to do that. I just like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And Moth existed in the same way. The difference with the Moth and what it ended up becoming is that upon writing down the first ideas, which could probably be summarized by saying the Moth, orchestral, heavy metal mix, dark, something to do with trauma and sex, incredibly complicated first three quarters to be juxtaposed by a simple ending. And that is kind of like in the same way as that piece of paper, just kind of put it aside. And you got to think as well that the amount of ideas that come up just by not judging them too quickly. Like it's very easy when you're sitting around with a bunch of buddies to have an idea and then everybody's jamming on it. And somebody's like, that's stupid, fuck it. And then you just don't take it any further. But I kind of give it a couple of steps beyond saying, fuck it. And if they're kind of vetted through that process and make it through, then sometimes they start to adhere themselves to shit that's going on in my life. And Moth, the reason it took 10 years is because in that initial thing, I was like, I don't know how to do this. I wouldn't know how to even start a project like that. It's an idea, but I wouldn't even know. So I passively started taking lessons. I had a guy named Nils that came in from Denmark maybe 4 or 5 times over the course of the first 3 to 4 years of that idea, and started showing me theory. Like, this is where a C note is, this is what the viola does, this is what the violin does, what the cello does, this is the scale, and this is the range that the oboe exists in, and what's this interval called, and, you know, what is this particular Latin term? And, man, after recording at that time probably 27 records without any theory and that level, to go back to the beginning like that, man, I just felt so dumb for so long. So I just kept like pushing at it, and then he would come out and he'd be like, "What's Mary Had Little Lamb with the other harmony?" And he's like, "No, that's actually not it." And I'm like, "Oh my God," right?
Back to school.
Oh my God. But then after 3 or 4 years of that, I started recognizing that my vocabulary for that thing was enough to at least get by, right? And again, it was a practical decision, because the first time I'd worked with an orchestra back with Deconstruction, we could only afford 4 hours worth of studio time. And when there was a mistake in the score, I didn't have the knowledge or the vocabulary to articulate where the problem lay and what the problem solution was. And as a result of that, I wasted 45 minutes of that 4 hours that I could afford. So it became a practical thing. When the Moth was just a twinkle in my daddy's eye, or whatever you want to look at it, I was like, okay, before we even entertain where this could go, we need to start to figure out how to avoid wasting money if we did it with an orchestra again. So taking those lessons, then it wasn't until 5 years later where I was passively thinking about concepts and talking to people. It wasn't until about 5 years later that I got approached by the NNO, the Netherlands National Orchestra and Choir. And they presented the opportunity to do renditions of like Ocean Machine or something with their orchestra as part of a government-funded thing. And at that point, I was just like, well, I could take the bull by the horns right now. So I said, well, do you want to do this project that's kind of in my mind here? And after a couple of days of deliberation, they said yes. They said, here's the parameters. We've only got 1 day we can record it. We're going to need the score way ahead of the time for the orchestra and the choir and the band. And, you know, it's like it was all very convoluted. So I said yes, and then from there it got real. And then it took, you know, about 4 or 5 years from that point of just logistically figuring it out, and then maybe about 3 years of writing, you know, off and on. Keeping in mind that during that time we did Transcendence, Empath, The Puzzle, Lightwork, Power Nerd, endless tours. You know what I mean? It's like the Bulgaria show. It's like one of the most logistically interesting thing about choosing to make music that prioritizes the freedom of what I want to do over any commercial considerations is that you kind of have to multitask.
Oh,
and
yeah.
As such, I've got another 5 projects I'm working on now, and some of them we may not see for another decade as well. You know, it's just kind of how it works. There's a certain amount of obligation that goes into it, you know, like I've got a family and, you know, I have a business and a mortgage and all the things that are required to keep that going, while simultaneously trying to be prioritizing the idea of I'm going to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. It just requires a lot of juggling. It's like, I think if it was a scenario where it's like I do one project, you know, I've been doing Ocean Machine since 1994, and we're on the 12th Ocean Machine record now, and then maybe my days would be a little less compartmentalized. But it's just I ran out of ideas for Ocean Machine towards the end of Ocean Machine, you know.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I have to prioritize whatever garners my interest, and oftentimes those are things that I have to spend time convincing people of. It's like I can't just call up Sony or whatever and say, hey, we're going to do Ruby Quaker now. It's about a spaceship, and it's like this whatever. It's like Ziltoid is a objectification of the part of me that was emotionally underdeveloped. And then all of a sudden we had kids and I couldn't understand what was going on. So if I objectify it as a external character, I can draw a perspective from it that my, ignorance won't allow in the moment. And but you can say it until you're blue in the face, but until you'd be like, oh, it's a coffee drinking alien, it's heavy metal.
Yeah.
Then you'll be, oh, okay, I get it. But it's like my reasons for doing these things are always just based on my own experience in life and my process. And to be fair, I'm certainly not trying to imbue that process with any importance. It's not like the reason I'm doing that is because I think it's so fundamental to the species that in absence of this type of expression, you know what I mean? Like people will be missing out. No, it's just what I fucking do. And I just figured out how to do it. And now I've got a bunch of amazing, empathetic people around me that are helping me do it. And the goal eventually is to try and create something that's a self-sustaining, creative freedom, prioritized enterprise. So that although maybe things don't get done with the same production value as Taylor Swift or something, at least we're able to do it. And there's something, the scrappy underdogs. I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you struck me as someone. I have a problem going on holiday because I don't really know how to do it. And it's like, it's always like I don't know how to chill. I'm always thinking, yeah, look at that. That's really beautiful. And then I'll start thinking creatively about something and I have to write something down, and my brain doesn't stop like that.
I'm getting pretty good at that, I have to say. Yeah, because and it's because I feel that I'm a lot more productive when I prioritize that. I used to think that any moment in my life where I switched off was just lost opportunities. But what I didn't realize until I burnt out 2 years ago, like physically, mentally, spiritually burnt out, that what would have prevented that would have been, really putting effort in a sense to slowing down when it was presented as an opportunity. So as soon as the Moth finished, I the next day I delivered it to Sony, and then I just got a middle seat to Thailand, and I just went there for a couple of months and literally sat on the beach and just looked at the water and ate $1.50 plates full of delicious food, and then went to sleep at 6 p.m. I did that for like 5 weeks, and it was fucking incredible, dude. And the other thing that was incredible is because it's not like I ignored the work. I just ignored the parts of it that were like, job-like. So with me, I brought like a single guitar and an interface, and I made the type of music that I felt like making, and it wasn't a part of work. It was just something that I felt compelled to do. And the recharge that came from legitimately shutting off my phone, shutting off all these things, was like medicine, man. So I've gotten much better at it, and I can't wait to do it again.
It sounds good, man. I'm kind of sold on the idea. I've just got to work it out.
Well, it's not easy. Because I remember the first time I went on vacation, I spent the first week being like, fucking, I'm just driving me crazy, dude. I got to get back to work. But then on about the 8th day, I was like, say, you know what I mean? And then by the second week, I was like, oh shit, we got to go back. I mean, it's like, I think depending on how deeply ingrained the traumatic parts of our work have manifested, it's like equal amounts of time to decompress before you can actually like relax. So I would say, give it, if it doesn't happen immediately, give it time. Like what we do as well, like with our team here, and what I do is, well, we go camping, but individually. Right. So basically, I'll load up, I've got an old Jeep, but I made a piece of plywood I can put in the back, and then a mattress, so that I can basically drive into the middle of nowhere with like a lawn chair and a bit of firewood and a Bunsen burner to cook, and then just sit in nowhere, in nature, no phone, nothing. And what happens is the first couple of moments, I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Then I get bored. But then once you break through the boredom, it's like so worth it. It's like a process, I feel.
Well, another thing that you released last year that I don't think I reviewed it. It was my first ever book review, actually, was your photo diary book.
Ah, man.
Now, I loved that because you know, they say it's the old adage: a photo can say 1,000 words, or
Yeah.
whatever they say there. Yeah, it hammered it home so much. Like just to see the images to go along with the words, like and see this personal perspective on things. I really enjoyed that book.
Thank you. I mean, it's so funny because it's like the Moth, it's like the book, it's like Power Nerd or any of these strapping. Anything that I do, I put all the effort that I can into the project at hand while it's being worked on. Like during the period in which it's being worked on, specifically at the deadline, be it a book, be it a record, be it a show or a tour, that's where all my energy goes to. And the importance that I place on it at that point is extraordinary. You know, not that it is important, but, you know, the importance that I put on it at least is extraordinary at that point. But once it's done, I never listen to it again. I never look at it again. I never read it. I never even open it. I might collect it in a dusty corner of a garage somewhere just to, you know, if I ever want to go back and have some sort of reference to all the bullshit that's happened, I can be like, wow, look at that pile of shit that we did in this lifetime. But I don't think about it once it's finished. And therefore, I usually have enough energy once I've finished a project and enough remembrance of the process to do the interviews for a specific thing. Like right now, the Moth is still fresh enough in my mind that I can answer questions about it, or I can make up shit about it when people are asking me things that there's no real answer for. You know what I mean? But it's still intriguing enough for me now to do so. But frankly, I've been working on a bunch of new projects, and it won't be long until I have to sort of write to the people who are setting up the interviews and just be like, I got no more gas in the tank to talk about this. Right?